We welcome you to our program entitled Talk Radio, where we can talk about many different subjects from a biblical perspective and hopefully reach some type of conclusion. I am your host, Bishop Dr. Derek A. Reeves, and with me in studio is
Minister Philip King Jr. Good to be with you all tonight.
So let's dive right into our topic for today. Today we're going to talk about gender wars.
No, I'm just playing.
Gender wars. And this is a topic that can be discussed in many different segments. Mm-hmm. And so we're not going to be able to uncover and to hit everything.
Yeah.
But I think the very first thing we need to do is to understand what gender is. And what I want you to do is to look up the term gender as it's listed in the dictionary online, because until we understand gender as it was meant to be understood, and until we understand simply because we want to change a definition or change an alignment of a truth, it doesn't make what we want to change it into true or real. All right, so let's start with the definition of gender.
According to the Oxford Dictionary, it is the male sex or the female sex, especially when considered with reference to social and cultural differences rather than biological ones.
All right, and so gender then, primarily, according to the definition, is the intended roles that the male and the female have in society. And so these rules and roles then were developed because when you have a masculine gender, then masculinity comes from the word masculinus, and it means that which is strong, that which is manly. And so primarily it deals with building strength. It deals with using cold, hard facts. But then when we talk about femininity or the female, it comes from a word, filare. Filare simply means one who nurtures. And one of the definitions of one who nurtures or the feminine is dealing with a nurse, someone who takes care of, someone that, again, nurtures and develops them to have self-esteem, self-awareness, and literally encouraging them to like themselves and to develop some sense of self-importance. And so when we deal with the masculine then is that which brings strength, that which teaches how to survive, that which makes strength. And so when you have masculinus, you have filare, they are actually different parts of the essence and the reality of God.
Boom. And now I want to jump in there because that's what I was going to say, Bishop. And I think an important piece to understand within this definition of gender, it's all based upon whose reference point of society you are looking through. Mm-hmm. Because when you look through the lens of God, God intended for man and woman to be in these roles because of, like you said, them representing the authority and strength of God, but also the gentleness and the nurture.
And I think we need to deal with also, because God is the creator of man.
Yes.
God is the creator of the mind.
Exactly.
And again, we're coming from a biblical point of view.
Exactly.
God created man. Man, he gave to them the capacity to create society.
Yes, sir.
And as a matter of fact, one of the 7 dispensations is human development.
Yeah.
And so God placed within man that capacity to develop societies so men and women can live out their lives
That's right.
in accordance to his will.
To his will.
That they might enter into a greater destiny
Exactly.
in the future.
And so, and I wanted to just point this out too, when we look at and examine God himself, and God moved upon the face of the waters. He brooded upon the face of the waters. And when you look at that term, it also deals with almost like a gentle overshadowing. So even in, and we're going to get back to that part, but I would just wanted to examine that and point that out to show that he is literally the example of and the model in which we should govern ourselves within our structured let's say patterns and operating of modes of living within our genderization. So yes, sir.
And what I want to say is that there has to be some specifics or society spirals out of control.
Exactly.
If there are no designations, if there are no positions where people play specific parts in society, then you have anarchy.
Exactly.
People begin to do what is right in their own sight, and doing what is right in your sight is sooner or later going to violate what's right in someone else's sight.
Exactly. And I think that, and again, and so this is good because we're getting to more towards the war part now of our conversation. God also intended for us to be complementary of one another.
Exactly.
The man complements the woman and the woman complements the man. The reason of that is God pulls woman out of the rib of man. And so thou, the thing that, not that man lost, but the thing that is less of him, which is that feminine.
Well, and we have to be careful.
Yeah,
we don't want to say what's less of him.
Yes.
But we do want to say, according to Scripture, God pulls Eve out of the rib. He uses a rib, and he creates the woman. That Hebraic term rib, it's salah, and it means a compartment, a dwelling place, or even a storage place. And so the rib then was a place in which the femininity of man was there.
Yes, sir.
And when we speak of femininity, I'm not talking about trans alignment or transsexual. I'm not talking about that. But what I'm talking about is qualitative life force. The life force that is within the mind that governs behavior based upon the anatomic structure.
Yes, sir.
Certain behaviors come because the bodies are different.
Exactly.
And when you have the differentiation of the bodies, then we have different hormones, different degrees of hormones that impact the mind differently. Doesn't mean one is less important than the other. They are different. And so God creates the genders. The genderization then becomes as society grows.
Yes.
But when God pulls woman out of man, then their sexes are male and female. The prescribed roles are the roles that God has established.
There it is.
In accordance to how the image of God was within him. And so we know that there is filare. God knows how to nurture.
Yes.
God knows how to build. God knows how to build self-esteem. Then there is the masculinus, the ability of God to impart strength, to impart vigor, to make strong, to make impervious. And so the societies that God develops, he now develops them through the aid of man, being and rolling out that what we call script. He creates, in accordance to the will of God, men, women now follow the script that is going to be interpreted in their gender.
But the problem is the age-old issue that everybody has an issue with. It's sin.
Yes.
When sin was introduced, now what caused this war,
And I
if you
think
will.
we have to be very careful when we talk about sin, because
Yes.
most people think you're indicting their behavior
And
and you're judging them.
Right.
But when we talk about sin, according to Scripture, hamartia
Yes.
or hamartano,
Yes.
it simply means that you've missed the mark for God's original intention.
Exactly.
When Adam fell, according to the Scripture, he ceased to be what God created him to be.
Yes.
Because Adam was, I believe, an intermediary. Not the same sense of the intermediaries that come with Gnosticism,
Right.
where you had a demiurgos that
Exactly.
was in between an angel and he created
Right.
created out of ignorance. That's not what I'm talking about. When I say that Adam was an intermediary, Adam then was between mortal and immortality.
Yeah.
He had not reached a state of actualization in being mortal or immortal. And that's why he had the potentiality to die spiritually,
Yes.
because death, according to the word muth or thanos, death then meant the dead who are dying. And what that means, he's separated now from the spiritual life of God.
Right.
And his body is ceasing to exist.
Right.
He's entering into a state of physical entropy.
Right.
And so God created, male and female created he them. They developed their society, and the society, because of the imposition of God's desire, now gives the role for the female and the male. Sexes, female, male, they now have roles to play in accordance to God's will, and that becomes the gender. So now let's deal with why genders are at war.
But that I love how you explained about sin, Bishop, from that reference point, because now also in that when you talked about the diminishing of the body, there was also something that took place within the mind
Exactly.
of man as well.
Yes.
And that causes him to now focus on that which he desires the most. And often it's to please himself.
And we have to come to a point when we speak eschatologically.
Yes, sir.
Something took place when man fell.
Yes, sir.
He still has his physical instincts.
Yes, sir.
He still has his mental instincts, and he still has his spiritual instincts.
Yes, sir.
Instincts are those things that determine who we are,
Right.
and what we need to survive.
Exactly.
And what we will do to survive. And so spiritual instincts then, we were made in the image of God, the likeness of God. And man, if you look through history, mankind have a sense that they want to be their own deity.
Exactly.
To call their own shots, to
Exactly.
do their own will. And so in us, if we're not careful, we will seek to rule and reign over other individuals. And that's in everyone at some
Everybody.
level. And so what happens, the fall into sin, it now creates an anarchistic mind,
Yes, sir.
an emotive stance, where we want what we want, when we want it, how we want it. And so we begin to call the shots. And that divine image,
Yes, sir.
that instinct, drives us now to be top dog.
Right.
And so everyone wants to be the center of attraction. And how can you become the center of attraction? By taking attraction off of something else. And so what you see now is that there is an argumentation, and I don't know if we have time to even deal with how the devil fits in with this, or how spiritual entities, because each male and female, and this has been going on for so long,
Yes, sir.
each wants to declare that they're stronger than the other,
That's right.
that they're better than the other, that they're smarter than the other. And in so doing this, each gender, each sex has developed this prime privilege existence where, because I am who I am,
Right.
I am supposed to get the best.
Or a God complex, Bishop.
Yes. And they want to be worshiped. They
Yes,
want to be
sir.
put on a pedestal. And I'm finding out that in society today, we've always said men are to take care of women.
Right.
But the Bible seems to say that husband and wives take care of one another. And it's not giving 50-50. It is giving
100% and
100%.
And that's so important, Bishop. And like you said, we don't have enough time to really delve into this because my mind is going so many different places right now. But I'll stay right here where we're at. Again, to understand that, number one, we were meant to be the image or the reflection of God on this earth, male and female, working together to be in unity. Whenever we introduce sin, it causes us to put our perspective on ourselves.
And you know, you said something very important just a while back. You talked about complementing one another.
Yes, sir.
And so we are to be complementary.
Exactly.
So the full image of God can be realized in our marriages, in our unions.
Yes, sir.
God made us different because now each sex can begin to see an aspect of reality.
Exactly.
And an aspect of behavior that is another side of God's behavior.
Exactly.
And that's why the union, masculine, feminine, it produces a greater image of what God is like.
Exactly.
And hopefully, as we complement those images, then we become greater wholes than what we are. We become greater in our femininity.
Right.
And we know how to now, with the little femininity that is there,
Right.
be able to attach to the greater femininity, to understand from a different
Yes, sir.
perspective. And those, the female who is feminine, can now understand that the masculine is not going to behave the way they do.
Right.
But they will now be those who revel in strength,
Yes, sir.
impart strength to others.
Yes, sir.
And so we need both. And that's what the image of God does. He brings to us a soothing
Yes, sir.
balm
Yes.
that causes us to be encouraged.
You know-
but at the same time, he brings strength. And we have just a few seconds.
And it's
left.
not tyrannical either.
Exactly.
And that's the whole point of sin. Sin is it is the focus on oneself, to promote oneself, to deem oneself higher than the other, and that's not of God.
And we are out of time. We thank you for joining us for Talk Radio. I am your host, Bishop Dr. Derek A. Reeves, and with me is Philip King.